Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 2CTV with some breaking news from France. Unfortunately, we've had yet another Islamist attack in mainland Europe. This time we go to the Republic and of course a synagogue has been targeted. Of course, it's the weekend, so the Jewish community have been taking some time off and pray with their families and go to synagogues. And of course, it's a perfect opportunity for the Islamists who claim that they only have a problem with the Israeli government, and they say, oh yeah, it's just Zionism that we don't like, but they seem to be having a big problem with anyone who happens to be Jewish. Of course, the mask is slipping. National security concerns are escalating across our countries in Western Europe, and in this video we're going to give you guys all the updates that we have, and of course we'll get your reaction during the live show. So this is the photo of the attacker. If this were in the United Kingdom, and you would see this photo, if you speculate the attacker's identity and the motive, you could be arrested by the police in the UK. But I think we can probably guess, considering he's covered in, he's wrapped in a Palestinian flag and wearing a tea towel on his head, and you can see there's a gun that he's carrying, of course, on top of the flag. He decided to target the synagogue. A car explosion, and one police officer at least has been injured. Let's go to the information we have. So, attacked the synagogue in La Grande-Motte city in France, and set fire to two cars actually, and detonated a gas cylinder. One police officer has been injured so far. We are waiting for more information on any other injured civilians and of course emergency workers. We do have a couple of I think short videos for you guys from the synagogue itself when the attack occurred, and of course the smoke is now everywhere. Let's go to the first video we have. Oh, there we go. 1 second. There we go.
Le centrage des eaux est en train de cramer.
Now, of course, the authorities are trying to keep everybody in the local area safe, but this could have been prevented a long time ago if our liberal globalist governments in our countries, in France and Germany and the UK, would have been more cautious and careful when it comes to who they are inviting into their countries. Now, this is becoming a massive, at this point, a pandemic sort of level issue. Now, there's been a lot of reaction on social media. Hen Mazik, for example, posted saying, when the world cheers Viva Intifada, this is precisely the result. A man carrying gasoline bottles in front of a burning French synagogue to avenge the so-called Narnia, Palestine. So, we have a reaction also from the Interior Minister, Damian, who said that an attempted arson attack, clearly criminal, I'm glad that you identified it as criminal, clearly criminal, hit the synagogue of La Grande-Motte this morning. I want to assure our Jewish fellow citizens, and of course everybody else, that the government is there to support you. Of course, Emmanuel Macron and his government are there to keep you safe, ladies and gentlemen, just like how our mayor of London is here to keep us safe in London while all the attacks continue to escalate on a regular basis and disorder spreads around our societies. We do have another video from after the attack. The emergency workers, paramedics, and the ambulance and the police all got to the scene. Let's go to that video as well for you guys. See what we are dealing with. There we go.
Ouais, bah, de toute façon, on ne me pas. C'est comment ça va? Là, dans le mettre? Non. T'es où, toi? J'étais au cracher. Je me prière.
Now, following another incident that we also had in Germany, of course, we reported that earlier today in our first morning brief of today. And of course, we've had a number of other stabbings and everything else been going on in Liverpool yesterday, as well last night in the UK. We do have some update on that. This was, of course, the stabbing in the Festival of Diversity that happened, and one person has now been arrested and detained in connection with the stabbing attack, in which 3 people unfortunately have lost their lives in Solingen. And of course, this was supposed to be a celebration of the anniversary of the foundation of the city. They called it the Festival of Diversity. Ironically speaking, of course, this these sort of words are becoming a little bit problematic in the Western world. So this is, of course, what's going on. We are waiting for more information from France in terms of what else the authorities know and what they can tell us. Of course, in this case, we know because the actual person, the attacker himself, has relatively been identified, at least in terms of the motive. You can tell, but we don't know the name or the age or the background of the person. Again, the authorities are doing, as they said, they are doing their investigation to see what is going on in this case. Let's see what you guys are saying in the live chats. Ghost Rider, thank you for your super chat, saying, Maya, a new merch idea. Unite the Kingdom face masks to all protesters. Masks, but ours will be more classy. I remember during the lockdown, we actually did do some face covering merch. But that was when everybody was wearing a face mask anyway, even though people didn't want to. And some people kicked off saying, well, why are you doing this? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's a good point. Why am I promoting this sort of nonsense? Mandy says, hi, afternoon. The demonstration take place in London today. I haven't heard anything yet, so I don't, although it is 3 o'clock, so it would have happened by now, so we don't know yet. David says, if one is protesting peacefully, why need a mask? Only people with ill intent or government agent provocateurs need a mask. Absolutely spot on. And if you are, if your excuse is that, well, I'm going to get into trouble if I wear a mask, if I go out in public, then they have bigger problems than that. Because, people say, well, I might get fired from my job. So that means the solution is not necessarily to just do a street protest. The solution is to have a wider campaign when it comes to our countries, like the United Kingdom, to actually change the system, to campaign for better governance and better political parties that will stand up for you as British people, and obviously in France as well. Fizzy Red says, no one is keeping the British patriots safe, only protecting the people who are attacking British patriots. That's the same problem we're currently having right now in France and in Germany. Those who are complaining about this, and in Spain as well, those who complain about the troubles that we are having, they will get called far right or thugs. GRW says the stabbings per day are in the double figures now, and that's just in the UK. Yes, of course. There are all the other countries also having the same problem. Paul says, can you imagine the uproar if this had been a certain religion's place of worship? Yep. And what the news would be saying, and the response that the religion of peace would be. Yeah, but we've had this situation. Of course, we know damaging any sort of property is illegal and is wrong, whether you're talking about a church or a synagogue or a mosque, legally speaking, obviously. But when we have one person, for example, one rogue, angry person goes and shouts outside a mosque, or even throw a brick at the building itself, there will be a complete uproar. There will be obviously the helicopters everywhere, the police everywhere, the media everywhere saying this is an attack on why it's Islamophobic and everything else. But the issue is, well, why is it there's not enough outrage when it's a church or a synagogue? Why do we not have the same level of protection? Why do we not have equal treatment of all faiths or any sort of ideology at the moment? Mirage says, this is why Islam is the fastest declining religion in the world. Yes, in terms of the conversion rate, Islam is not doing as successfully as, for example, Catholicism, because they're not able to spread the word. They are trying, of course. They do a lot of preaching, but the reason for the pace in terms of the population around the world is simply because of the birth rate. There's a lot of babies that are being born amongst those families and communities, and of course a lot of the Christian side are becoming obviously more middle class and more educated, and obviously they become more careerists as well. The wives and husbands, everybody has a job, and then of course that creates complacency, not enough babies, although some of the traditional Catholic families still have a lot of babies, but generally speaking, Christian side, especially the Protestant side, they're too busy with materialism, let's just say, in life, to focus on the priorities of humanity. Wings of Freedom says the Bible prophesies all of this. The world will turn against the Jews until the Messiah comes. Nara Buffy says, defend yourself. No one will talk about you as long when you are gone, and line will start immediately anyway. And it says they are trying to get into America too. They pick up the Palestinian terrorists at the border pretty frequently, in addition to the mishmash of the South American gang members. But the issue that we have with the southern border in the US is that for a long time the biggest worry was essentially the South Americans and Mexicans and a lot of the gangs and drug dealers. But the southern border now has a whole, it's becoming very diverse in terms of the people who are crossing the border to come into America. We got people from China who are crossing the Mexican border, which is fascinating. We've got a lot of people from North Africa and the Middle East who get themselves to Mexico, which is a fascinating journey, just in order to be able to get into America. Because, of course, the Mexican border, or the southern border in the US, just like the situation with the English Channel, with the UK and Kent, seem to be pretty open right now. So as long as you could get yourself to France and Mexico, you are able to get into the Anglosphere. And again, while we have governments like the socialist government in the UK, and of course Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, then these problems will not be resolved anytime soon. Peaceful Mountain says, let's not forget that Islam also lies about their numbers overall. They range from 1.7 to 2 billion. Plus, it's now increasingly popular to not consider Shias as real Muslims. Exactly. Well, it's the same thing with the Protestants who keep attacking the Catholic side, saying they're satanic or whatever. But it's even bigger when it comes to the Islamic world. Shias are not actually considered as Muslims anymore. And that's why, of course, ISIL and all the others decided to hit the Shia side hard in Iraq, in Syria, obviously small group in Syria. Of course, the rest of them, the remaining Shias, are just basically in Iran. And that's not even a big population, because only about 30% of the population in Iran are practicing Muslim, and they're all basically Shia. There's like a tiny percentage of Sunnis in Iran, which is a fascinating concept. I don't know why they exist, why they haven't really bothered to leave to go to any other Sunni country, but that's a geopolitical issue, obviously. As it says, do you think that all these churches being burned down are just a coincidence? It's not Islam is growing faster in smaller towns and villages. Again, it's just the birth rate when it comes to the rate. Keith says, and there was me planning on getting on a small boat to France to escape the persecution from Starmer KKK. Yeah, France is not the solution if you want to flee somewhere. So Smile says, do Islamic baby girls come out the mother wearing a burqa? Genuine question. No, it's funny because until you're like, you get to the age of around 8 and 9, there are photos, for example, of little girls are able to wear pink and hair out, and the moment, like literally the next day, when there's birthday, that's it. No more pink, and you have to completely cover your hair. The fact that the whole point of the the rhetoric of the modesty and everything else to cover women is to stop men from becoming horny, right? But that should apply to adult women. If you want to cover up children, then there's something wrong in your head that you would think of a child as a sexual object, unless, of course, there's some sort of covering up. It's weird. What's your view on BRICS nations and them backing gold? So that strategy has now changed. So BRICS initially was created as a bloc to obviously still to rival the dollar supremacy and the American empire. The initial idea was they sold it as we are going against globalism. But then obviously as they grew and grew, obviously China, Iran, the leading countries in BRICS, and obviously Russia and others, then it turned into an Eastern globalist bloc. It's not really about promoting sovereignties. It's because now they're moving away from gold. The initial move is to basically move away from the dollar, so they will promote their own local currencies. That's the initial idea. But they've already announced over the last few months that the idea is to create a centralized currency, and it will be obviously digital currency, central banking, CBDC, a digital currency, which is now being implemented first, obviously, in places like Russia and China. Iran is next. The Western globalists are behind when it comes to digital currencies. There are bureaucracy and a lot of problems. But of course, there's also the dollar that is trying to control that market, the financial supremacy of the dollar. Obviously, there's a problem with the Western globalist mentality because they've been under the American empire, or when people call it the Anglo-American empire, but when it comes to the global finance, it's American empire. It's not sustainable. It's not really a good idea. The age of empires. But if the solutions were for countries to just promote their own national sovereignty and independence, that's a good idea. But creating a rival bloc, which is to oppose Western globalists, to create an Eastern globalist side, that is also not a good idea. It's not the right solution. And the whole point is that, again, it's basically a European Union version of a more international level where each country will initially, they are supporting each other, which is good, fair enough, trade and everything else. But it's been now centralized mostly from Beijing to be able to dictate on all the other countries. It doesn't really help. BRICS is not your messiah. They're just naughty boys. Very, very naughty boys. But it's not really to defend the dollar supremacy either. So it's not really a black and white situation. It's not really people are becoming tribal. It's like football, where they think they have to pick sides. You don't have to pick sides. All sides are stupid. You have to pick your own side and promote your own individual liberty as a human and your own tribe, your own national sovereignty. That's the only way you can go. Professor Gammon says there's even a mosque in Iceland now. Wow. Iceland. That's also changing. Yep. Wings of Freedom says the globalists, communists and Islamists are all about destroying every bit of Judeo-Christianity in the world. Yeah, I mean, that's culturally speaking, the last few centuries, what we have in the Western world, but that includes Australia and New Zealand, by the way, is obviously the Christian values, which obviously originated from Judeo-Christian values, but it's Christian values we call it now. But when it comes to the last 100 years, 200 years, in terms of the system of governance, it is basically the Anglo-American Empire, or now more so the American Empire. But the values are that. So obviously, the opponents to what we have, and the system that we have is not perfect. Obviously, there's corruption, there's idiocy, there's incompetence. But the alternatives, whether it's the Taliban, whether it's the communists in China, and all the others, you might say, well, the crime is low in those places. Yeah, because they will chop up your hand. And you won't have any sort of liberty. So again, the solution is not to necessarily pick between San Francisco, which is completely chaotic and degenerate and full of crime and very liberal, or Beijing. You don't have to pick between those two. And this is the whole problem. People are thinking, well, I have to pick sides. It's either the Western globalists or Eastern globalists. It's either Ukraine or Russia. It's either Israel or Palestine. Just support people who want to live. Right now, of course, the Jewish nation, they support life and freedom. Anybody who supports life and freedom, support them. If they want to harm you, oppose them. It should be straightforward, but of course, that's why are people talking about Jesus being libertarian. Someone said that Jesus wasn't a libertarian. No, Jesus was not a libertarian. Would have been a very, very interesting promotion of values if any sort of prophet, well, in terms of biblical times and Abrahamic religions, were libertarian, because it would go against any sort of collectivism or any sort of promotion of community spirit. It would just say, well, I'm just for me, you should do you and I'll do me. No. Jonathan says, I used to feel sorry for France whenever terrorists attacked, but after what they did at the Olympics, I'm not sure anymore. This is the problem, by the way. I'm sure Jonathan means well, but this is unfortunately becomes also collectivist. For example, when the establishment, the Olympic establishment and the government in France do something stupid like the Olympics, then people go around saying, I'm going to put all the French people in the same category. There are literally very good, conservative French who are fighting against Macron, who hated what happened in the Olympics. And they are good people. They're patriotic. They believe in freedom and they believe in church. And obviously, when we say things like this, I know Jonathan didn't mean it like this, but we were like, well, I don't feel sorry for the French. All the French are bad. It doesn't work that way. You got good people in each country. You got bad people in each country. You got complacent people in each country. It's the same with Iran. For example, if someone says, well, the Iranian regime are the Islamic and the nutters, so that means every single Iranian is basically bad. I shouldn't feel sorry for the Iranians. They're literally fighting against the Islamic occupiers because the country is being occupied by the Islamic side. So you can oppose governments, but not every single person. That becomes more of a stereotype. Anyway, this is the latest update from France and Germany. We'll keep you guys posted throughout the day. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya 2C, and we are the media.